So, a fresh new week has arrived, and here in this channel, that means one thing and one thing only. Every week I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you the viewers to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week, based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week, there have been a few more free agency signings made, and more rumors have begun to swirl on the open market, so we definitely have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now. So if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but it also very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Penguins, and he says that the San Antonio Spurs have now become overrated and, in a stacked Western Conference, still aren't good enough to make the playoffs. I'll start this one off by admitting that I'm definitely a part of the Spurs hype train and find myself being in the camp that believes in their ability to take off this season. But let's actually take a deeper look at both sides of the equation here for the sake of fairness. I understand why people are hesitant to buy in because the truth is, most people have to see it to believe it, and the Spurs haven't shown they're ready for the leap on the court yet. So everything is just speculation and projection right now, but last year the Rockets exploded up the standings after years of rebuilding, so it's not unreasonable to think these type of breakouts are possible. There's a lot for Spurs fans to be excited about too, because obviously Victor Wembanyama is a ridiculously unique talent at his size with his skill, but having De'Aaron Fox for a full season is a good reason to expect improvement too. Another year of experience under the belt of their young players such as Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, and Keldon Johnson helps, and being able to add Dylan Harper to the mix from the draft gives them even more playmaking and creation in their backcourt after severely lacking in that department outside of Chris Paul for most of last season. There are, however, real causes for concern that make the original take here seem somewhat valid. The spacing with this Spurs lineup is pretty horrid if I'm being completely honest, with Harrison Barnes being the only above-average shooter in the bunch. Devin Vassell has shown he can get hot and threaten from deep, but last year he made just over 36% of his threes, which is much closer to league average than the Spurs would probably like. De'Aaron Fox has been a subpar three-point shooter for his entire career, making just 31% of his threes last season. Stephon Castle was one of the worst volume three-point shooters in the entire NBA as a rookie, making just 28% of his threes, and Victor Wembanyama is a capable shooter from the outside, but he converts his threes at just a 35% clip, which is also pretty mediocre comparatively. If the court shrinks, that makes the life of Wemby a lot more difficult in the paint. It leaves fewer driving lanes for De'Aaron Fox to get downhill, and there may be some games where things just look clunky. Overall though, they have the talent to stack up with the rest of the West, and I do believe they will end up making the playoffs this season, but it's also fair to doubt their ability to make a very deep run as currently constructed. The next take we'll be discussing today comes to us from a happy boy, and he says that Giannis Antetokounmpo should not request a trade and instead should wait it out and walk in free agency when his contract expires. Giannis has been one of the biggest headliners of this offseason from the very beginning, with several reports indicating that other teams around the league are closely monitoring his situation in Milwaukee, and based on the path that the team is headed down, there was good reason to believe that Giannis may push for a trade to get himself back onto a team he can legitimately contend on. The Bucks traded for Damian Lillard 2 years ago to try to get back to the top, but instead they've been bounced in the first round of the playoffs in back-to-back years. Lillard is now clogging their payroll by not even playing for them anymore after being bought out, and they're running things back next season with most of the same roster, except for the fact that they replaced Brook Lopez with Miles Turner. They're still good enough to make the playoffs as is because Giannis is that good, but realistically, there isn't much leading anybody to believe that their fate come playoff time will be any different than it has been over the last 2 years. If you've been a consistent viewer of my videos, you know I've been of the belief that the Bucks are just treading water, delaying the inevitable, and that I think it's a big mistake choosing to hover in mediocrity like this, but for the sake of seeing both sides, let's look at this alternative. Giannis currently has 2 years left on his contract before he has a player option for 2028 that he can opt out of. Giving the Bucks 2 more years to figure things out and retool around him seems fair enough, but he's already turning 31 years old this season, and with his skill set in particular so heavily based on his physical advantages, that's the type of play that tends to wane before anything else, so the clock is ticking on being able to maximize his prime years. The Bucks don't have valuable trade assets in their rotation, they don't have control of a single first-round pick of theirs until the year 2031 because they traded them all away, and even in 2 years when a lot of the players on their roster's contracts expire, they still won't have max cap space to spend in free agency because of Damian Lillard's dead cap hit, Miles Turner's new contract, and Bobby Portis having a player option that he will likely opt into. Giannis will be 33 years old by the time that his contract expires, and while he should still be dominant at that age, it very well could also be the point where his dominance starts to wane. I think I'm doubling down on the way that the Bucks handling things being the completely wrong way to do it for everyone involved, and the longer that they wait, the worse it will be for all parties. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Sir Ryan, and he says that nobody won the Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis trade, essentially saying that it's because both teams sacrificed way too much without getting long-term stability. I think in the short term, this is a pretty reasonable take, but the part of this take that I disagree with the most is the tidbit at the end where he included the part saying that neither team got long-term stability from it. Yes, right now, the Lakers are a flawed roster, and their ability to keep up with the ever-improving Western Conference is going to be tough this year, but the duo of LeBron James and Anthony Davis was clearly running its course, and the franchise didn't really have much of a game plan in the inevitable post-LeBron era, with his retirement looming. Luka Doncic is 26 years old, just now starting to hit the prime of his career, and he's been one of the best players in the entire league for 6 years already. He's the kind of future Hall of Fame talent that franchises dream of being able to build around, and the Lakers were handed him on a silver platter. Rome wasn't built in a day. This team may not be in contention from day one with him at the helm, but to insinuate that the Lakers gave up long-term stability by acquiring one of the few players that will be dominating the league long-term just doesn't make any sense. The biggest issue with the Mavericks side of the trade has always been that they abandoned a player like that in order to try to go all in on contending when contention just didn't seem very realistic given their circumstances. Anthony Davis has been incredibly injury prone and isn't getting any younger, Klay Thompson's best days are well behind him, and Kyrie Irving is now trying to come back from a torn ACL at 33 years old. The Mavericks are definitely a group that gave up long-term stability in this deal, and if they weren't gifted Cooper Flag by the draft lottery ping-pong balls, their long-term outlook would be completely cooked. Ultimately, both groups at least have a foundation for the long-term outlook, even if there are clear and obvious flaws with how the trade shaped each side for the next season. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes we discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.